Here's what you missed on the Mike Brown Morning Show.
Okay. About 20% of grocery store workers had COVID-19, and most didn't have symptoms. Most of them didn't even have symptoms. Now, grocery store work puts employees at serious risk for infection. A new study found particularly those who have to interact with customers. Now, let me go back to the top of this title, though. 20% of grocery store workers had COVID-19. You know, that's a lot of people. So that means out of 100 employees, 20 of them would have had COVID, or out of 10. I'm sorry, or out of 50, 10 would have had COVID. That's a lot. Okay. These workers likely become a significant transmission source for COVID-19 without even knowing it, because most in the study were asymptomatic. The analysis, published Thursday in the journal Occupational and Environmental Medicine, is the first to demonstrate the significant asymptomatic infection rate, exposure risk, and psychological distress grocery store workers have felt during the pandemic. In the study, 20% of the 104 grocery workers tested in a store in Boston in May had positive nasal swab tests. This was a significantly higher rate of infection than that was seen in the surrounding communities, the researchers said. Workers who dealt with customers were 5 times as likely to test positive for COVID-19 as colleagues in other positions. But 3 out of 4 of those who tested positive had no symptoms. We were definitely surprised to see that there were that many people that were asymptomatic, said Dr. Justin Yang, an assistant professor at Boston University School of Medicine and a researcher at Harvard of Public Health who worked on the study. He's smart. Let me keep going. This is definitely very alarming, as it means that retail grocery store employees are exposed to customers and sort of serve as a middleman for the virus, like a super spreader almost. I agree. I've been saying this since the beginning. Workers in the study had tried to take precautions. Nearly all, 91%, said they wore a mask at work, and 77% said they also wore a mask outside of work. Yet only about 66% said they were able to practice social distancing constantly on the job. This inability to social distance had an emotional as well as a physical impact. Nearly a quarter of the people in customer service jobs said they had problems with anxiety and depression, compared to 8% of workers who did not have to interact with customers. Employees who continued to commute by bike, car, or by walking were less likely to experience depression than those who use public transportation, the study found. If you are in an environment when you're literally in front of a customer, you can't be more than 6 feet, and that is really stressful for essential employees, Yang said. At least 108 grocery workers have died, and more than 16,300 have been infected or exposed to COVID-19. The United Food and Commercial Workers International Union said Thursday. The union represents 1.3 million employees. Look, it's more to the story, but I'm done reading it. So here's the thing, man. How can you effectively social distance at the grocery store? You can't. Think about it. That's tough. Because think about the people that's stocking. Like when you get to the cash register, you know, they have the shield up. So although you're not socially distanced, you're masked, I'm masked, there's a shield. But then you got the workers that are actively in the aisles stocking stuff, like putting stuff on shelves. And then you got the customer interaction where it's 30 people in one aisle. It's impossible to socially distance at the grocery store. So what am I saying? What I'm saying to you is, if you have any underlying conditions, don't go to the grocery store, period. You shouldn't be going anywhere, really. I know that sounds mean and it sounds boring, but if you want, this is how serious it is. If you want to live and you got conditions, don't go anywhere. And then if you don't seem to have underlying conditions, I'm about to say, this is going to sound harsh, but if you don't take care of your body, if you don't take vitamins, if you don't attempt to put right stuff in your body, for lack of a better way of saying it, then you don't deserve to go nowhere. You deserve to stay in the house until you decide that I need to do better, not just for me, but for the people around me. Think about it like this. If I died, how does that affect everybody around me? Now, God is in control. Yes. Don't ever confuse it with me that I'm saying that he's not. He's in control, period. I just believe if you want to be here, you can make an agreement with God and he'll let you stay. Now, don't be mad at my faith. That's my faith. I know I got some more things to do and it ain't time for me to go. However, I still have to participate. With faith without works is what? It's dead. And then without faith is what? It's impossible to please God. So I need faith, but my faith ain't work. My faith don't work if it's dead. And if I got dead faith, then how am I pleasing God? So we have to put work in order to activate our faith. And so if my faith says I ain't going nowhere, I'm not. But I have to participate. How do I participate? If I know that black people have a vitamin D insufficiency, then I want to take some vitamin D. If I know that I need to have some zinc in my system, I want to get some zinc. I'm going to get some vitamin C. And then if I know that ginger is an antioxidant and it cleans my system, it gets the mucus out of my system, then I'm gonna consume a lot of ginger and turmeric. I'm gonna get some black seed oil. I'm gonna do the things necessary to remain healthy. That's all I'm saying. Eat clean. I would admonish as many as you can. If you can't, as many of you as can, if you cannot eat plant-based, do your best to eat as close to plant-based as possible. Do that. All right, I don't want to get stuck on that, but I thought that was noteworthy, man. Like, it's the grocery store. Like, did y'all ever think of that? I know I thought of it. And I believe I may have vocalized it before. But, yeah, we definitely should have did that shutdown for certain, without question. All right. Don't forget today we're reviewing Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to kind of tag on to where we left off last week at the end of chapter 1. We're going to get into chapter 2. I'm not sure if we're going to finish chapter 2, but we're going to get into it. As always, it's open for discussion. If you want to be a part of the discussion, you can actually call in today if you want to be a part of the discussion. And you can email me at the Mike Brown Morning Show at gmail.com. That's the Mike Brown Morning Show at gmail.com. You can hit me up on Instagram at the Mike Brown Morning Show, or Facebook right there at Mike Brown, Or you can call in today at 313-327-6551. 313-327-6551. Hey, I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to contribute to the conversation on Rich Dad Poor Dad. You can do so. Now, before I go to this break, yesterday I had a very, very interesting conversation with an older gentleman, and we were talking about Detroit, and he's an older gentleman, so he has to be in his 70s. But he shared with me how Detroit was when the blacks were segregated to the black bottom. And history will probably paint Black Bottom as a scum place or just this dirty, nasty place where the black people were. It couldn't be further from the truth, my friends. And it made me, I was so excited. I knew this story, but I was so excited and elated to hear someone that lived through that talk about it. Anybody that was here prior to them building 75 straight through Black Bottom, just tore it up, just built a freeway. You want to get rid of the black people? You want to destroy their community? Build a freeway through it. They may not ever bounce back from it. And guess what? They didn't. Not yet. Not yet. So he was just saying how Black Bottom, and he said, man, black people own their stuff. It was community. And then I know stories about Black Bottom too, because the church, so I'm minister of music at Greater Bethlehem Temple. It's Clinton Street, Greater Bethlehem Temple in Detroit. They had a thriving church starting from the 40s, I believe, 30s and 40s, all the way. No, before that, the church started in 1919. The church was in Black Bottom in Detroit from 1919 all the way until 1962, I believe, is when the city came through with urban renewal, is what they called it. They called it urban renewal. And what did urban renewal do? It cleaned out Black Bottom. Built a freeway and did some other things that basically are still questionable, because if you go through where Black Bottom used to be, it's like, this is what y'all did with this. So, long story short, this is just one entity, Clinton Street, just one entity. It's other black businesses and organizations that never recuperated. But let's talk about Clinton Street for a minute. They were going to build a church. As a matter of fact, they were in the middle of building a church. I'm talking ground broke, foundation laid. In order to build the church, they had bought so many properties around the church. Probably hundreds of thousands of dollars at that time, which would probably equal to millions of dollars at this time. Don't you know that the city, the state, mandated urban renewal? And it's kind of like eminent domain. It's like, it's nothing. You own this, you pay taxes on it, but I said I'm coming to get it. How unjust is that? Well, that's what happened. But I was still excited to hear about what was. And I'm excited about it because it's coming again. Y'all heard me say it, and I believe it. It's coming again. Look, when we come back, we're going to get into the conversation on Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's a lot to talk about in it. So we're gonna take it in stride. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show, and listen, you made a great decision to hang out with us today. And I got so much to say, I just can't say it all at one time. So let me go, and then I'll say the rest when I come back. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up. Right here.
The Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up, baby, won't you wake up? Hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Right here on the Urban Uplift.
You are tuned into the Urban Uplift. Oh my God. Always positive, always purposeful, always powerful.
Wake up, baby, won't you wake up? Hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Right here on the Urban Uplift.
That's right. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show right here on the Urban Uplift. So, it's only 4 days left till the election. 4 days. What does that mean? That means that if you haven't voted today, go vote. Or at least go and request the absentee ballot. And in some cases, you'll be able to fill the absentee ballot out and then turn it in on the spot. So it's almost as if you voted, which you really did, but it won't be counted until later, but at least you voted. Now, some of you listening to me, you live in states where you can vote on the spot. Like they'll take you right into the ballot booth and you'll vote early. I happen to live in a state that doesn't happen, but you can still fill the ballot out and make your selections on the ballot, then put it in the envelope and turn it into the clerk, or put it in the drop box right outside of the clerk's office. Don't put it in the U.S. mailbox. It's too late now to mail those absentee ballots in. Listen to me and go tell somebody, go tell auntie and grandmama and uncle and everybody that has a absentee ballot. Tell them it's too late to drop it in the mail. Even if you're in the same, just don't do it. And here's another thing. Whatever district or whatever your voting region is, drop your ballot back off at that office. If you put your ballot in another district's drop box, your vote may not be counted because they have to then mail your ballot to the correct district. So drop your ballot off where you picked your ballot up. I'll say it again. Drop your ballot off where you picked it up. Okay? It's important that we show up this time. This one is different because it's different for a lot of different reasons. But Donald Trump, man, he a loose cannon. And y'all know how I feel about the presidency. It don't matter who's the president. What's going to happen is going to happen. But it's a certain way that we can still look as a country. We look terrible right now because he just shoots off. And that's just not a good look. So go vote. I think it's I think it's politically incorrect to tell people who to vote for, but I'm gonna tell you, if you're listening to me, if you're gonna vote for president, you should probably vote for Joe Biden. Now, I also, though, as you know, I'm controversial. I'm not one of those people that say a vote for, if you, how do they say it? A vote to not vote. How do they say it? If you were to say, I'm not voting, I'm going to vote, but for president, I'm going to leave that selection blank. There are those that say, well, if you do that, that's a vote for Trump. I'm not one of those people, because I look at it both ways. If you don't do it, it's a vote for Biden. I mean, it just depends on how you look at it. It's perspective. But if I'm saying that neither one of those candidates I can support, then that's just what I'm saying. So, but the most important thing is that you go and you exercise your right to vote. Go do it. What is it that you think I said? I may have said it. I mean, I'm interacting with our guests. Tell me what it is and I'll address it before I get into this book review. So yeah, make sure you vote. We only got 4 days left. And this is, somebody's messing with me because I said vote for Biden. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me explain. Up until March of this year, if I was going to vote for president, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I was gonna vote for Donald Trump. Am I a Donald Trump supporter? No. But was he the best option at the time before coronavirus? Yes. Out of if it would have been the two of them, and by that time I think it was just those two. Yeah, I was gonna vote for Trump, but the way he has handled our country, the way he has handled the coronavirus, is unacceptable, and I can't vote for a person that doesn't even have remorse. Like, it's one thing. See, a lot of rich white people, they don't identify with the black. They're never going to be able to identify with the black experience. So a lot of times what comes off as arrogance is really ignorance. And what comes off as arrogance and lack of empathy is ignorance. They don't even realize that they're being ignorant. That they're ignorant. So that's one thing. I'm not saying that that's acceptable, but I can see how that can happen. That's just like a poor person trying to understand rich people problems. Like, you just can't identify with it. So I get that. But then it's another thing when people are just dying every single day and there is no, maybe remorse is not the right word, but the reason I'm using remorse is because I feel like he could have did more about it. But it's like, it's no recourse. It's no, like, you almost will want your president to be at the verge of shedding a tear because of so many people that have died. Like, that's like a 9/11 type tragedy. This is like a Katrina type tragedy. And we don't know when it will end. So that humanity piece, that's huge. So although my politics is not in line with Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris, if I must vote for president, really the only reason I'm voting is we got to get rid of Trump because he mishandled this situation. If that's my only option, then I'm gonna vote for Biden. That's why. And it's still it's still tough for me to say it, but it is what it is. So go vote and make sure you educate. If you haven't already voted, make sure you educate yourself on what's important. I think that's what's pretty cool about the take home ballot or the absentee ballot. You know, you're not in that box and feeling like you pressured to hurry up so the person behind you can vote because the line was long. Then you actually can sit down. It's like an open book test. Look these candidates up and see. Don't vote straight ticket. Now my cousin, they share with me that if you're registered in some states, like you have to vote straight ticket. I don't know. I don't know how that goes. But if that's not the case for you, do not vote straight ticket. Find out. One of the Republicans might be what you need in your community. Or the Democrat may be what you need, but don't just vote for a person because they're Democrat or because they're Republican. All right. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So we left off at the end of chapter 1. If you haven't read it yet, make sure you get it. Invite somebody to join the conversation with us. By joining the conversation, that just means that you're going to get the book and you're going to read along with us. We haven't been going very fast yet. We slow rolling it. I thought we would go faster, but it's a lot of information. So right now we're going to slow roll it. But let me just do a little review of what we already gone over with the book. Chapter 1, the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. And we know that the subtitle of the book is What the Rich Teach Their Kids About Money That the Poor and Middle Class Don't. And it's not that the poor and middle class wouldn't. It's just that there are things that they just don't know. And since we're privy to these things now, it's up to us. It's our responsibility to pass this information along. And I feel like we can build community this way. All right. Some of the things I highlighted about chapter 1. And the reason I'm saying I did is because I want you to tell me some things that you may see that stuck out. So how you can do that is, again, reach out to me, email me, or you can call in. All right. But one of the things that stuck out was how ambitious Robert and Mike were as children. I mean, and then they took it literally. They took making money. They took it literal. That like children are so, we can learn a lot from children, but they literally went and made some money, like literally. And then one of the things that stood out about Robert's, his educated dad, poor dad, you know, he knew how to generate income, but he didn't know the difference. He knew that there was a difference between him and Mike's dad. He didn't necessarily know how to point to the difference, but he knew that there was a difference. And then another thing that stood out to me is that when it comes to rich people or people that are financially free, financially literate, the most valuable thing that you can get from them or the most valuable thing that they can offer you is their time. Teachable moments is worth more than any amount of money that they can give you. What do I mean? Well, Robert and Mike went to work for Mike's dad, and he only paid them 10 cents an hour for 3 hours. So, and even he said there wasn't a lot of money in those days. Well, the lesson that he wanted them to get from that is what I'm teaching you is more than what obviously more than what you can make with the 10 cents. But the 10 cents is going to frustrate you so much that you're going to come up with ways. You're going to try to figure out, how can I do something to make more than this 10 cents? But the lesson that he was showing them is you can, but it's up to you to come to that conclusion. And that lesson was more valuable than giving them a raise. You know, it was one point in the chapter where Mike's dad was like, okay, what if I paid you $1 an hour? Or, hey, what about $2? Let's just make it an even $5. Although that would have been more money, they would have never arrived to what they originally set out to do. And what they originally set out to do was, the question was, can you show me how to be rich? That's what the question was. I want to be rich. Show me how to be rich. Listen, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show.
You are tuned into the Urban Uplift.
Oh my God.
Always positive, always purposeful, always powerful. You are tuned into the Urban Uplift.
Oh my God.
Always positive, always purposeful, always powerful.
Okay, so if you know somebody that's wealthy, that's rich, that's really, really well to do, don't ask them for any money. Because first of all, they not gonna give it to you. And if they do, and this is how rich people work, if they do give you the money, they not gonna expect it back because they already know the deal. But the investment that they would have put into you, it's almost like you're not worth my investment, because instead of you gleaning, learning, you want some money. But when it is, I can teach you how to get money over and over and over again, but your mind hasn't changed. See, and so what happens is our mind has to change. And I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me slow down a little bit. But in order for this to work, in order for us to accumulate wealth, we have to change our mind. It starts in our mind. And the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And that's the truth. All right, so the book goes on, and Mike's dad, and by now you should know that when I say Mike's dad, that means rich dad. If I say Robert's dad, that means poor dad. All right, so at this time, Mike's dad is explaining to Mike and Robert that people are controlled by two emotions. And this is all his opinion, but there are some truths there. So fear and greed are the emotions that he feels like people are controlled by. And here's a quote from what Mike's dad said that's in the book. He said, most people have a price. And they have a price because of human emotions named fear and greed. The fear of being without money motivates us to work hard. Then once we get that paycheck, greed or desire starts us thinking about all the wonderful things money can buy. Isn't that something? Fear is what motivates us to work hard. And what is that fear? Fear of not having, fear of not being able to meet obligations, fear of being broke, fear of being homeless, fear of not being able to feed your family. Those are fear. They're legitimate fears, but they are fears. And so once we are in a situation where we have that income and we're able to meet all of those needs and obligations, then sometimes what happens is greed kicks in. And what is greed? Greed is, I've met these obligations, so now I'm going to start getting stuff that I really don't need. And not just get stuff that I don't need, but I'm going to get it in access because I can afford it. That's how greed sets in. So these two emotions are emotions that keep people or can keep people from obtaining wealth and becoming rich. Fear and greed. Now here's why fear is also dangerous, because the fear is what motivates you to work hard for money. But what has to happen, what has to change in your mindset to make the transition from poor and middle class to wealthy and rich, what has to happen is you have to understand that at some point you have to stop exchanging time for money. At some point, you cannot exchange time for money, because what you'll learn to understand is that your time is too valuable for a dollar amount. You have to arrive at a place where you can't pay me for my time. And that's a part of learning how the rich don't work for money, but they have their money work for them. And when it comes to money, see, we have to master it. This is how we get past those two emotions. By mastering money. When you master something, you own it. See, a little transparency here. Really, deep down, I have a fear of dogs. I really do. Now, can I be around dogs? I can be. But there is still fear. And fear, what does that mean? That means that I'm around you, but I'm eyeing you because I'm nervous. But what is it to master a dog? You own all the space around that dog. The fear doesn't exist. When I say sit, you sit. When I say stay, you stay. Whatever the orders are, whatever, and the dog knows it. So I'm your master. I own you. That's how we have to do money. See, money can't come into my life and control me. I control it. Money can't tell me what to do. I tell it what to do. I'm not going to fear money. Now, I know, just follow me here. I'm not going to fear it. When it comes, I'm going to be able to handle it. But that has to change in your mind. And so a lot of times that has to happen in your mind even before it catches up to you. See, a lot of times, and I am getting ahead of myself, but I'm out here now. But a lot of times people obtain, but because their mind hasn't changed, they lose it all. Think about the people that win the lottery. And here's what's crazy. Most of the people, think about it. Most of the people that win the lottery, ain't they always the poorest of the poor? or most times anyway. Doesn't it seem that way? If you watch one of those shows where people win the lottery, I mean, they be poor white trash most of the time. And you never really, it's rare that you see a black person that win those millions of dollars. But what I'm trying to say is, if they follow those people for not even 5 years, sometimes a year later, 3 years later, they flat broke. Why are they broke and they just have millions of dollars? Well, it goes back. It's a few things, but remember early in chapter 1 where taxes came up, and how remember when Mike's dad said that rich people understand taxes and poor people don't. So taxes, because off rip, when you win a lottery, almost half of that probably goes to taxes. Period. So it's probably, I mean, in that case, I don't know if there's nothing you can do. You didn't earn it anyway. So I don't know. But still having an understanding of it can help you out a great deal. Then, what do I do next? I got these millions of dollars. I didn't have it before. So how do I not allow fear and greed to take over? All right, so that's how we're going to segue over into chapter 2. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. We're going to continue with the conversation. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, chapter 2. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show. I'll be back.
Wake up. Right here.
The Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up, baby, won't you wake up? Hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Urban Uplift.
If they teach you what they want you to go on to pursue, then now they can form and shape a society that they want. And then you become pawns in the game. You become a part of the rat race. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I can remember specifically having a conversation with a wealthy person. And this was years ago now. And in my ignorance, I started asking poor people questions. I said, so how did it feel when money was no longer an object for you? Like when you could just go and spend money and didn't have to worry about what bills you had to pay and all that stuff. And immediately in that moment, that person could tell that my mind hadn't changed. And the reason that they could tell is because those are poor people questions. Why are those poor people questions? Because you have to understand that let me say it like this. If you understand that it's not about how much money you make, but about how much money you keep, then you begin to understand that you have to control your expenses. Now that might be a little too fundamental for somebody because a lot of times we look at things and we try to figure out how we can get rich quick. Well, we have to understand that it's a process. This is not a get rich quick situation. This is a process, and the process starts in our mind. And so when we talk about literacy, it comes from the word literate. And that word literate just means educated or cultured. So we have to become financially literate, financially educated. We have to educate ourselves in the area of finances. And so one of the most basic fundamental things in finances is don't spend more than you make. So So if you make $1,000, you can't spend $1,200. It doesn't make sense, right? So if you make $1,000, you want to spend as little of as possible. You want to be able to keep as much as you can of that $1,000. You understand? I mean, so that's fundamental, right? And so that's one of the basic fundamentals of financial literacy. And why they don't teach that in school? My own answer is because they want to produce. They want to control what society is going to look like. Now, are those subjects that I mentioned earlier, are they necessary? Yeah, for a lot of fields, they are necessary. If you're my doctor, I'm going to need you to know some biology. Oh, yeah. You're going to have to know some chemistry and all that stuff. If you an engineer, you're going to have to know them numbers, that geometry and algebra and all that stuff, calculus. You need to know that. But a person like Michael, I need to know how to balance a profit and loss statement. I need to know what a profit and loss statement is. I need to be able to balance it. I need to understand profits and losses. And then I need to be able to count money. That's really all I needed. Because I already knew, I knew that music was going to be a great part of my journey and entrepreneurship. And I've shared that testimony with you all before, how God showed me that music was not going to be the way that I obtained wealth. But it was going to be because of my wealth that my music was going to be sustained. It's crazy. We'll talk about that later. But financial literacy, that's what they need to teach in school. But since they are not, that's what we're going to teach our children. So it's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. Make that your mantra today. It's not about how much money I make. It's about how much I keep. And so if I master it at this level, if I master it while I make $40,000 a year, then when $150,000 comes, I'm already winning because I learned how to keep more of the 40,000 than most of my counterparts would have. And one of the lessons that chapter 2 also teaches is that, just because your income goes up, it does not mean necessarily that your expenses have to go up. They don't always coincide. Just because my income goes up, my expenses don't necessarily have to go up. Right? So, and then chapter 2 also gets into when your expenses go up, what do you do? Like what do you do with the excess money? And that's why becoming a business owner, this is me talking now, but that's why having a business mindset, becoming a business owner is very important, because we'll talk in a little bit about what you do with that access. All right, so we saw in chapter 2 here where a basketball player had made millions of dollars, and just a year later he was working at a car wash. Why is that? That's because he made millions of dollars as a poor person. He hadn't made the transition in his mind. So he allowed, remember at the end of chapter 1 where we talk about fear? And more so, it sounds like in his case, it was greed. But he said that the people that handle this money, accountants and managers and things of that nature, they did away with his money. But because he wasn't literate, it's the equivalent of having a contract and you don't if you can't read, you don't know what the contract says. So somebody takes all your money because where you signed, it may have said, and I take all your money, and you signed it. It's the same thing, not knowing, not being literate about money, not being able to ask the right questions about taxes and where, what money markets and stocks, and like you have to seriously educate yourself about these things. Otherwise, you'll just be working and working and working. And what do you want to do that for? Why do you want to work all that time and not have anything to show for it? But I worked for 30 years. Listen, that was perfect in our parents' day, and in their parents' day. That was the sweet spot probably in America, where the powers that be, they found themselves in a sweet spot that these boomers, they're going to work for 30 years, or the generation prior to boomers, they're going to work for 30 years. We're going to make everybody pay the certain amount. At the end of the 30 years, they're going to get, not only are they going to get the money that they save, but they also at a certain age are going to get monies from the government that people had to give out of their checks. That was the sweet spot for America. But now we getting ready to have the biggest amount of people that's going to need that money, and it's looking like it's not going to be enough money there for those people. And, you know, I don't know how to feel about it. I resolved it in my mind a long time ago. I resolved in my mind a long time ago that probably wasn't going to be me anyway. You know, not because it wouldn't be nice to get some money that you didn't work for, I guess. I mean, but you did contribute to it. So from that aspect, you should get it back because you contributed to it. But it's like, is that the beginning of socialism? It kind of is. But the lessons that are taught in this book teaches us how we can be self-sufficient so that we won't have to depend on socialism. And you know what I like? You know what's so powerful about God? You know, a lot of times we say things and we don't even realize what we're saying, and we don't even understand the seed that we're putting into the atmosphere. For years, years ago in my 18, 19, early 20s, I would always say, I'm not working for somebody for 30 years. I'm not waiting on a retirement. And I just never saw that working. I had a revelation at an early age that that's not going to work in our world anymore. And surely that's what's going on. People change jobs all the time. And I mean, you can't accumulate your retirement even if you change jobs, but nobody's working at the same place for 30 years anymore. And more now than ever, people are responsible for their own savings plans, because sadly, most jobs now in America don't offer those savings plans, those 401ks. You're now independently responsible for your savings, what you're going to do post-retirement, which is okay. It's okay. It's independent. But I'm saying all that to say, I put that in the atmosphere that is not what I was going to do. And here it is, all these years later, I'm on that track. Yeah, I have my own retirement plan. Now, that's just one aspect of it, but I really said that to say, and you may need to write this down or remember this, but the teacher will appear when the student is ready. The teacher will appear when the student is ready. Now, although all those years ago I was saying those things, I didn't have the knowledge to support it. But if you say a thing long enough if you live through it long enough, then now the teacher will appear, or the knowledge would appear through the form of a teacher to catch you up to what you said. So, and even with Rich Dad Poor Dad, now, there was a time that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I just read it and didn't get anything from it. But I believe it was the second time that I read it and I said, there are some fundamental truths here that can be applied, that can change lives. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're here. That's why we're reviewing it. I only got a few more points left right now, I think. So what we have to understand is that if we want to be rich, we have to be financially literate. Like, it's no alternative. It doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you have or obtain. If you are not financially literate, you are going to lose it all. Or if you get millions of dollars and like maybe you are somebody, you inherited it or something like that. It's possible that you could just spend, and then you got a money manager or something like that. That's possible. But for the average person, if you're not literate, it don't matter how much you get. You have the potential, a great potential, to lose it all. Because what did we learn? It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. And I said to make that your mantra today. It's not about how much I make. It's about how much I keep. And here's another thing that chapter 2 kind of hits on too. A lot of times we think that because people have certain professions that they're rich, or because they have certain professions that money shouldn't be an issue or wouldn't be an issue. That couldn't be further from the truth either. Because it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're an engineer, whatever big salaries are that we can think of in America, an athlete, if you don't have this knowledge, if you don't apply this knowledge, if you are not literate financially.
Wake up. Right here.
The Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up, baby, won't you wake up? Hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Urban Uplift.